Okay, so I've been playing Impact for such a long time, and I started to realize the one thing that has been currently dragging the game down, and that is the gacha aspects of this game. So I really wanted to start a new series in my channel that is focused on essentially changing games into I believe to be a better version of themselves. So let's start with the pros and cons for transforming Genshin Impact into essentially a gacha-free version of itself. Starting by the shop. For instance, right here, we have a lot of different ways to cut down on the amount of time you have to play the game if you keep spending money. Like for instance, is there any other game out there that essentially tells you, hey, if you spend money, you have to play this game for less time? Like, excuse me? What the fuck? We are effectively being rewarded for being lazy right here, and I don't really like that. I've spent time and time again playing this game. I even spent some money on it, but I never really saw myself making use of the shop ever again. Like, if ever. The only things I have actually I actively purchase is what almost every single player do. It's Mora and the free wishes every month. By doing this, we just get rid of a very stupid mechanic that shouldn't even be there in the first place. So, getting rid of the shop would essentially, quote unquote, demonetize Genshin Impact as a gacha, but we could still keep it there, essentially, because of cosmetics. We all know that one of Genshin's biggest pros out there is that for character monetization, it is all focused on how much a player really loves a certain character. Because there's a multitude of different videos out there that display, oh, I've saved like how many primo gems just so I could get my Nahida into C6. Like, a guy out there started saving ever since like Venti came out on the first fucking version of this game, all the way up to right now, once Nahida came out, and he wished his butt off all the way up to C6. So player investment is certainly there. You can get 5 stars by just essentially just playing the game, but what if that statement was actually a lot better? So the wishing system comes next in regards as to replacement, and what we would have would be a strict removal of this system for a completely different one. So instead of the wishing tab right here, we would have a different tab that essentially keeps tabs on character specific quests. So, for instance, let's say that you just started playing Genshin Impact. Your first characters should indeed be Lisa, Kaya, and even Amber, because you actively partake on their character quests right from the start. So they actually should be your starting units, and they should be like what you strive for as a player in order to like increase, because we have players out there who are indeed fans of Kaya, players out there who are indeed fans of Lisa. There is like fans for every single character out there, and they are not really rewarded for their time spent on their character, mostly because of constellations and a lot of other things. Only players who have money are those that are actively going to have this system all the way up to the maximum. Removing the wishing system entails that we would need a replacement in order for this game to continue earning cash, and we have that in the form of special cosmetics. Like for instance, if Genshin Impact started to put a lot more of their energies and emphasis into creating character cosmetics, and instead of like creating just random ass events that everyone's just going to forget over in like a couple of seconds, it would actively, I believe it would actively generate them a lot more cash, because some players are really engaged on certain specific characters. For instance, I think I've heard like a multitude of content creators just essentially screaming onto their microphone like dogs, essentially saying, "Hey, when are we going to get for instance a pool party version of D-Luke, a full blown like outdoors version for Jean, Mona, and a lot of other characters, because everybody loves a certain specific character so much that they would still end up spending a lot more cash if every character at the very least had a skin. Like for instance, I would love to see the active sales for skins, like for instance like D-Luke, because I believe it's sold very well. Because D-Luke was already like a very interesting character that a lot of people already wanted anyway. So once the skin came out, that actively changed how the character looked, that and actively gave him a bunch of new interactions, a new idle animation, no voice acting, and like a lot of other different things. You would strictly see that if every character had at the very least one skin, this game would continue to make even more, if not the same amount of money, through both the gacha system or through character skins. So that's all of the cons out of the way for making this game into a gacha system. So now let's cover the pros. The pros of actually transforming Genshin Impact into a full-blown quote-unquote gacha-free game would essentially stem from players that are more into completionists, are people who going to spend a lot of their times like playing the game rather religiously, time and time again, just because they want to see their character collection just essentially flooded, instead of having them spend a lot of money. And I believe it might be one of the reasons why they haven't done it yet. Because honestly, having every single character in Genshin Impact is expensive, but people went as far as to collecting constellations for their character, which on average I think it's around like $200 or something stupid like that. Like, bro, if you really love a character, you should be incentivized into playing him, and not just, oh, I spend money, now I have him completely fully fledged already, so I don't need to invest onto him anymore. For a full character investment, I believe it should take a lot longer, and we have this in the form of the friendship system that I will be introducing into you in the future once I complete like the overall thought like processing behind like all the pros. For instance, right now, Genshin Impact is only benefiting of players who are not actively tryharding or actively willing to engage in a lot of other systems. So, like for instance, the artifacts system is not a system created like for all of the theory crafters out there who know what the best stats distribution is for every single character. For instance, we have this in the form of players who spend their resin on making sure that their character is as strong as it is, just so they can actually clear the abyss. Because it is by far one of their biggest driving forces for their sales. Because they know that players are actively looking for constellations, so they can easily clear this without engaging into elemental gauge theory and a lot more complex things, such as what we see on a bunch of YouTube guys. For instance, shout outs to Zajeff for being by far one of the best theory crafters out there, who has been consistently right on the majority of his predictions, by the way. So by removing the gacha aspect of Genshin Impact, we would have it so that the Abyss can finally start growing as a concept, because investment will come naturally. So their intended excuse for making players feel like a FOMO would essentially be gone, because now the Spiral Abyss can actually just grow in size and get consistently harder, so that only players that have been playing this game for a consistently long time can actually achieve, because you would actually get to see the fruits of your labor. The amount of effort that you've placed into this game would actually be translated into further Abyss progression. So essentially completing the Abyss would be like the ultimate goal for players who would continue to play this game, which is completely fine, but it gives them a lot more of an expansion terms for the Abyss in general. So they could spec even further into the roguelike aspect of the Abyss, of the debuffs and benefits and a lot of other things. So it could play rather similarly to a game like for instance Binding of Isaac. It gives them freedom to make sure that players are not suffering from fear of missing out every single second. Because we know that the excuse was BS. We all know that. Their targeting salesperson is only ever using the Abyss to make sure that we keep spending money. So I'm actively surprised not to see that abysses haven't been getting harder every time, that they actually haven't been getting more difficult to clear every time. They started to, though, because ever since the article came out, the impression that a lot of people had for the Abyss shifted into a much more difficult one. We had chambers that contained the Abyss guards. Now we just had the Wolf Lord and a lot of other ones that require certain specific characters. So yeah, the incentives for you to grow and expand your collection of characters is certainly there, and should be already there, because right now the Abyss is actively, quote unquote, trying to get harder just so players like us can stay happy. But hey, this is by far the biggest contention point for my argument, is that the Spiral Abyss could actively grow and change without the gacha system, because progression would not be tied to spending money anymore. So The other aspect that I would certainly love to remove is this one, the stupid resin system. For instance, players who make effective use of this already have a bunch of well invested characters. Do you know how long it took us? Of course, like 2, 3, 4 months, if not a year, for some very unlucky cases. Like for instance, I still don't have a Crimson Witch of Flames set for my Hu Tao. I spent a lot of resin over there, but I still don't have like a very good set. So I just used gladiators instead because it got insane stats, as you can see. She is actively like hitting like a truck still because I don't have to be optimal. I don't have to use like X, Y, and Z artifact set because there's no incentive for it. I don't really have to look into it. There is like no reason for me to l- like look out right now into currently playing the game even longer because the only thing I could ever increase is just my constellations. So now that we have stated both pros and cons of allowing Genshin Impact to change as a game, we can go look into the solutions for this because I don't want to just be doom and glooming the entire time. So, for instance, let's look into a very good replacement for the gacha system. And they already have it over here, by the way. They just need to implement it even better. So, character acquisition. Character acquisition is currently only set up through wishing. But what if we got characters through their character specific quest? Since every single one of them now so far have it. So for instance, we would have it so that characters like Amber, Kaya, and Lisa are still the very first ones you get. That would not change because their character specific quests begin right at the start. Very similar to Barbara and Razor, even Ling and Beidou. Like a lot of these characters, you do their character specific quests and you immediately get them. And characters that don't have their character specific quests, for instance, like Beidou, we have the other hangout system that allows you to, or at the very least should, get a copy of the character that you really like playing. For instance, what if you just started playing the game and you look at a character, for instance, like Chongyun? He's very cool. A lot of people love his design and aspects and overall personality. So they want to play Chongyun. All you need to do is just come over here and unlock his thing. That's it. Then you can start playing Chongyun as early as like Adventure Rank 5 or I don't know when even the Hangout system is unlocked because nobody even mentions it. Still, this is a very interesting and more engaging way of selling people the character and make it so that he's a lot more believable and a lot more enjoyable because we actively get to see them be themselves. It would still be an incentive to sell skins and it would still be an incentive to make actual good use of the world that they have built so far. The majority of these characters' quests are very interesting, and I've loved going through every single dialogue options that they offer. For instance, one of my favorites one was the Hazo one. Hazo was very engaging and interesting, and sometimes oddly flirting with the traveler, which is a bit odd, but still, his experience was extremely enjoyable, and you could see like his personality flourish through many different interactions and situations, which still serves the active purpose, like the 5-star character quests that we currently have in this game. For like, for instance, characters such as the Wanderer, Nilu, Tainari, Ayato, Shenhe, Kokomi, Raiden, you get the point. All of them had their own specific like chapter in the story that you had to go through and complete. So giving the current player a copy of the character is by far the perfect thing to do because you keep player engagement. You get something new to play every single time, by every single waking moment. And if you don't like a certain character, you don't have to play it. Just essentially just make sure that players are actively investing into the characters that they enjoy playing. And this is a very good incentive. So, for character investment is the very next topic of this conversation, and I would like to essentially introduce. Oh my god, come on. I would like to essentially introduce you to a new way of collecting character-specific constellations without the gacha system, and that would be through player investment. For instance, let's say I really like Nahida. I can invest my time into playing Nahida, and as soon as that is like actually observable is for the friendship system. For instance, I really love playing like Fischl and Oz. So she's at friendship ship 10. And it took me a long ass time to do it. So if you keep a very similar time but slightly reduced, every single time you get a character to a friendship level 10, you respec all the way to level 1, or it would still growing all the way up to, for instance, 100. And all the way it gets to, like, for instance, plus 10, plus like 20 or whatever. You would see character specific constellations as a reward. This would allow players to continue investing their time and love into the characters that they really enjoy while getting rewarded for doing so. As for the baseline that we have, like for almost every single character that we have over here, nobody is constellation dependent. So if you really want a certain character, you must first look after him on the character specific quest, finish it, and then begin investing on them. By investing on them, it's essentially completing the artifacts, finding a good weapon, getting finishing the ascension process, and essentially displaying your love for a certain specific character. Like, for instance, I really like Kale, but since she doesn't have constellations, I decided that it's best to not invest on her because it's just not worth it. For instance, if I could keep playing Kale for like the constellations, like on a very similar system that I have, I would keep doing it because, as you can see, she's at friendship level 6. So I have played Kale a good time. I really liked her voice lines, and I really like a lot of everything that she could provide us on the table. Like, she's enjoyable. She's a fun character. Just saying. But she's not as good because I don't have her on all constellations, and I don't have a reliable way of collecting them anymore. So not only would this system be future-proof, but it would be extremely rewarding for players that really like a certain character, but don't have like the actual mess-ass bank account. Doing this would not only keep player retention, and keep player investment, but it would also keep player hours. So that people, like the overall frequency on which people would keep on playing Genshin would still be relatively the same. for players out there who would actually want to, get a C6 for every single one of their characters, it would still be very much possible. For instance, I'm one of the few people out there that have invested a crown into Xinyan. Like, I'm sorry, but you just don't get almost anyone like this. This is ridiculously stupid. Like, I invested in this much on her because I really like the character. She's at friendship level 10, for God's sake. And I do have her at C6, but not because I actively wished for her, but because I got lucky, and I don't like that. So another way to consistently change the way that we look at characters, it is through this. If you like this opinion, you can post it in the comment section. I would be more than happy to read it through and display it for the rest of the world, like for the rest of the world to see, and just as a beautiful display of what Genshin could be. Because I really want this game to keep succeeding, but as it is, everyone is starting to just think of this game as like the card system, which is still good. Don't get me wrong, but it's clear that it's starting to show its age. For instance, players who really like Sucrose cannot get Sucrose constellations without her being on the banner, and so on and so forth. You get my point. Just saying. Another way, so we are effectively we have reworked the shopping system, the wishing system, and the character progression system. So now, getting rid of the resin system would entail a couple of other things. How do we keep increasing our characters' levels? So a way to do this would be very similar as to a system that I believe a lot of people don't even know that exists in this game. And you know what it is? Is every single time you kill a very specific enemy, he drops you experience points. Did you know that? Because I'm pretty sure that a lot of players never really notice it. You might have back when you started playing the game, but now that you've been playing this game for so long, you barely started noticing it because it's not relevant. The amount of experience you get is so negligible that the only way to level it up it would be through the ley line overflows, or like the blossom of wealth and a lot of other things. For doing this, you essentially remove those things and severely increase the amount of gold required for every single specific upgrade on a character. Like for instance, if you increase the experience you get by killing mobs, you are incentivizing those players who Mihoyo is seemingly targeting, essentially saying that, a lot of people don't really invest their time on Musgrave, which, as we all know, is actively a counter argument against their very marketing of this game. Essentially saying that, a lot of people don't care for this game's combat is much against what it actually took us as a incentive to keep on wishing. Like for instance, if you really like a certain character, you should be rewarded for investing your time onto it, not rewarded by just paying it through. This is a mentality that has shown its time, like its age, time and time again throughout gaming as a history, because we have certain specific games who have you spend cash to reduce the amount of time you have to play the game, and I never really understood it. So another way of actively solving this puzzle as a developer and as means to make sure that Genshin still continues to make a bunch of cash is to invest on the various systems that I have previously mentioned, and to say it out loud that I am extremely confident that it would work. I can also say that I'm extremely confident that it would straight up ending on making them less money. That is strictly obvious. Gambling is an addiction. A lot of people spend a bunch of cash on gambling because of fear of missing out, because of anxiety. A lot of the very things that they said themselves that they would not be doing. A lot of things that they said that they were actively avoiding in their players' choices. A lot of things that they actively said that they are not really investing on their game. A lot of other things that, oh, hey, uh, we're doing this because our players have been feeling extremely anxious. So yeah, they don't really have any avenue run over there. This is by far the best way to essentially change how a lot of people play Genshin Impact and give a whole ass new meaning to continuously playing this game. Like for instance, like how I'm doing right now. I'm actively running around, completing my dailies, which, mind you, could still see place on the new system because, as previously mentioned, they give you character experience points and companionship experience. Not only that, but they also, some of them also give you experience books, which I believe it should still be in the game as it is, because it allows you to invest on a character without actually playing it still. So you could still have like a multitude of different playstyles while still investing on the characters that you like. So whenever they are fully fleshed out, you could whip them out and start playing it. I never really understood this aspect as well of this game, in it's essentially saying that, oh, you want to play a new character? Well, too bad if you haven't saved up any resources prematurely for him. That was the actual case for me playing Sino. But anyway, this video is getting a bit too long already, and I would like to keep it more concise and simple, but I just straight up couldn't. I like this game a bit too much in order to not ramble on it for a couple of hours, if anything of the kind. So, if you like this video, leave please leave your feedback on the comment section. I would love to see if you guys actually agree with my amount of huge opinions out there for this game. If if it would still be as successful, if it would keep making money, if it would make sense for the developers. Please leave your opinions on the comment section, and I'll make sure to read every single one of them. Thank you for listening to me ramble. Uh, I'll catch you all on the next episode.